What is good, y'all? Welcome back to Chris and Rock Productions. I am Chris, and today I want to get into some DC news. Good news, bad news, mainly bad news, but it could lead to good news. So, as always, before we get into all that good DC stuff, I just want to say thank you for the support. We're a small channel and we are growing surely but surely. Surely but surely. I said that backwards. So, if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing at the end of this video. We often post DC stuff. This last week we haven't posted at all. Been super busy with work, but I am getting back into it. I've been on and off, but I'm getting back on it. So what I've been thinking about recently before recording this video, the other day I did a video focused on the the DCU Superman Legacy castings. You know, with Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, and all that good stuff. So I was thinking to myself after I uploaded that video, I was like, you know what? Since I follow DC every single day, how about I do a DC focused show or DC focused show, basically? It would probably be once a week, most likely once a week, if not 2 times a week, if I'm able to get 2 videos in as far as DC stuff. But sometimes the news is slow in terms of the DC world, but recently it's been pretty fast. There's been a lot of good stuff coming out. So right here, let's go ahead and not waste any more time. Let's get into this article from the Hollywood Reporter. I'll go ahead and give that title or read. So it says, Warner Brothers quest to build a better Aquaman sequel. 3 reshoots, 2 Batmans, and non-stop test screenings. So we've heard the rumors, if you've been following Aquaman, that the test screenings have not been good. We know that there's been 2 different actors who have done shots for this movie as Batman, and there's been a lot of reshoots, and one just a few days ago, I believe a few days ago. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into this. So the first thing I wanted to focus on is the reshoots. So right here, the movie was in the middle of post-production and the beginning of test screenings that summer. While a timeline is not clear from the summer of 2022 to the beginning of 2023, The Lost Kingdom underwent 2 rounds of reshoots and held several uninspiring test screenings. So these reshoots, I don't know exactly when they happen. Obviously, there's not that much of a timeline, but we can go ahead and look at what they actually reshot and some of the things they added and they cut. So right here, so Walter Hamada obviously was the head of DC for the longest, and whenever he was there, you know, they wanted to bring back Michael Keaton. So Michael Keaton, we know, was in The Flash, which bombed horrendously. The Flash is now the biggest comic book movie box office bomb of all time. Very, very unfortunate for the DC studios. But yeah, so when Hamada was there, his plan was to bring in Keaton, who was going to be, like I said right here, the Nick Fury of the DC. He was going to sort of pull the strings behind the curtain. He was going to be setting missions. He was going to be recruiting people and things like that. So whenever Hamada left, that's whenever Abdi and DeLuca took over. They scrapped the Michael Keaton idea and they brought back Ben Affleck. If y'all seen that image a while back, right here, of Ben Affleck and Jason Momoa, this was the reshoots that took place, I believe, earlier this year, or I think it was earlier this year or late last year. No, I think most likely earlier this year. So yeah, they brought back Ben Affleck to come in, do the cameo as Batman. I don't know if he was going to be in suit as Batman, but obviously right here, he was just going to be Bruce Wayne. And then since James Gunn and Peter Safran took over, they scrapped that. They scrapped the Ben Affleck idea, and now it's confirmed that there's going to be zero Batmans in Aquaman 2. So right here, it's stated that James Gunn and Peter Safran do not want to promise any movie universe that will not come to fruition, nor tie it down excessively to past failures. It was pretty chaotic, said one source. But that's very true. We know that the DCEU overall was a failure. The biggest box office hit was Aquaman, the first one, and we didn't do a review for the Flash because there was so much going on at that time. We didn't even record a single video in June, basically anything. But my overall thoughts for the Flash, real quick, is I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. My issue was the ending because it didn't really make sense to me to bring in George Clooney. I would have rather just had Michael Keaton be in that and wrap up that story. But they brought back George Clooney. And it sort of was like, okay, so they're not setting anything up with Ben Affleck. Obviously, we know we're getting a new Batman, and Keaton's not coming back anymore. Not by choice, more so the studio just moving on from that idea. And now it's affecting Aquaman too. And it's probably going to end up being a good thing, obviously, because, like mentioned, you don't want to tie this movie into any DCEU further failures. If Jason Momoa continues to be Aquaman, if he continues, then you don't want to have, oh my god, this McAfee thing, whatever, keeps popping up. You don't want to have any further, ties to the DCEU. If you want to continue Aquaman, if you want to continue Jason Momoa as Aquaman, then you want to just sever as much of that as you can in this movie. Try to, cash in on what you have and call it a day, and focus on the future. Focus on Creature Commandos, Amanda Waller, Superman Legacy, obviously, Brave and the Bold, the mascara show that they're going to be doing. Um, you want to focus on that stuff, and to cut the Ben Affleck stuff, it sucks because I don't know. I don't know if I mentioned this, but The Flash made me really, really like Ben Affleck as Batman. I enjoyed how he looked. His action scenes were phenomenal, but overall, it's just not how I envisioned the Batman. The way that he was written, not by the way Ben Affleck portrayed him, just the way that he was written, and just the short scene that he had in Flash. I thought it was very entertaining, and I thought it did a really, really good job in telling that story of that character working with other superheroes. But obviously, Ben Affleck's gone, and we'll see exactly how they're gonna wrap up the Aquaman story. I think they're moving on from Aquaman. I have a feeling that not from Aquaman, from Jason Momoa. And Jason Momoa, like I've mentioned in other past videos, he's going to be coming back at some capacity, because he's already had meetings. He posted it on his Instagram story of him meeting James Gunn, Peter Safran, smiling, screaming in joy, things like that. So he's going to be coming back. Most likely, people want him back as Lobo. That's what I see him as, coming back as Lobo. But we shall see. And then they did, let me see exactly, more test screenings occurred in February. So yeah, I was correct. It was back in February. And again in April, this time, Peter Safran, producer of the first Aquaman as well as The Lost Kingdom, had become co-head of DC Studios along with James Gunn. So Peter Safran, he was also the producer on Blue Beetle, the head producer. But whenever he got the job as co-head of DC Studios, he moved on from Blue Beetle. Right here, it also mentions it right here. So James Gunn and Peter Safran granted 5 days of additional principal shooting for Aquaman 2. James won, Jason Momoa, they went in, did the shots. They said it went so well that the Warner Company completed the shoots in only 4 days out of the 5 days. So they saved money on that fifth day because they didn't need to use it. But I wonder, what exactly did they change? I am curious, because how much I love the first Aquaman. I know Black Manta is going to be the main villain of this movie, which I absolutely adore because I fucking love Black Manta. Um, but I'm curious if they're going to change the ending to have it complete the Aquaman story. Maybe, I know there's one of the best storylines in Aquaman in the comics is whenever Black Manta cuts off, Arthur Curry's hand. So I wonder if that's going to play into effect in this story. I don't know, because then that means if they were to continue that story, it would be like, okay, now you have Jason Momoa coming back as Aquaman. He has a hand missing with the hook. So I don't know. I'm just going on a tangent on that, or like a little thing like that. But it says right here, so Lost Kingdom is already an expensive production. It was greenlit at $205 million, and obviously that went up over time because of the reshoots, and recently the other reshoots they had done the other day. And then right here, just basically the rest of the article goes into, it's the final movie of the DC Extended Universe, which I think is a good thing. End it, clean cut if you can, move on. Let's go ahead and get into the DCU. And obviously, DC, they've had flops. Black Adam, which I thought was a flop at the time, considering I thought Shazam and The Flash were going to do better overall. Black Adam ended up making more money than Shazam, and definitely made more money than The Flash. Um, and it's hurting the DC brand overall. I think the general audience as much as people say, oh, it's because James Gunn came out and announced his slate too early. Obviously, I'm sure there's people who have that in mind, who follow this stuff, because we're in a bubble. People don't who watch this don't realize that we're in our own little world. People every day, people don't watch DC videos and look at, oh, why is Aquaman having reshoots? They don't watch that stuff. They just go, oh, look, The Rock's on the big screen. I'm gonna go watch a Rock movie. Oh, look, Michael Keaton's back as Batman. I'm gonna go watch Michael Keaton back as Batman. They're not following the things that we follow every day. So I think overall, the impact of the DCEU was the failures of past movies. I think BVS, Man of Steel, the issues with the Justice League 2017. I think Birds of Prey, even though I enjoyed the movie, it didn't do well in the box office at all. 2016 Suicide Squad did not like at all. It hurt the brand more than it helped it, in my opinion. And so, yeah, I think it's just trickling down to now Aquaman 2, 5 years after the first one came out, and the DCU never caught its footing. It was never able to get its legs and continue to, flourish into what it should have been. So now that Aquaman 2 is going to be the last DCEU movie, I'm excited to watch it because I'm excited to see Jason Momoa back as Aquaman. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this article. The first Aquaman also had reshoots, issues like that, but I'll go ahead and end this article with what James Wan had to say. He said, this movie has something to talk about climate change, but it's still a fun action fantasy movie. Not much that he wanted to add. This was back in April. So obviously a lot's changed since April, so we shall see what that is. But good to see some more positive news. And I thank you. I will just remind myself, thank you. Since they are continuing to spend this money on Aquaman, they're continuing to grab reshoots, they're continuing so much more and more and more. I think they have faith in this movie, and they want this movie to be a box office hit, whatever that is, whatever it either makes. It's not going to make close to $1 billion. I don't think it's not going to. I don't think it's going to catch the first one. But for them to keep spending money, I think it's a good thing, at least for the movie. All right, so I just want to show these cool little images off right here. All right, we got the Aquaman suit right here, very similar to the first one. I don't know if there's any changes at all. Yeah, I don't think there's any changes. I don't see anything. Maybe the shoulder pads are a little different, but I think that's pretty much the same. So that's a pretty dope suit. It's on display at Comic-Con San Diego. So we got the Aquaman suit, and we'll go ahead and transition to the next one. Is the Blue Beetle suit right here. So we know Blue Beetle's coming out August 18th. And I want to go ahead and get into that for a bit. So Blue Beetle right there. So this is not good news at all. So this is from the site Box Office Pro. They're basically saying that it's estimate to make opening weekend a range of 12 to 17 million. Domestic total range 27 to 55 million. I think that is the overall box office. What it's going to end up making, 27 to 55. Obviously, this is just a prediction. We're still a little less than a month away till the movie opens up. But this isn't good news at all for Blue Beetle. At all, of course. All right, so my opinion on this whole situation, obviously the strike's happening. That's a whole separate video. Hopefully the actors and the writers get what they want. But as far as this movie, obviously it already has the DC brand having its issues going against it. It has Blue Beetle being a lesser known comic book character compared to a badass Superman, Wonder Woman, as well as a Flash. A Flash is part of like the core Justice League, and his movie absolutely bombed. So it has those two things, and then obviously the big thing is it's not getting any more press for it because of the strike. So you're not going to have a red carpet with the main actors. You're not going to have any press junkets. You're not going to have any interviews of them promoting this movie. They can't go on Good Morning America. They can't go on any local news stations. They can't promote this movie at all. So that's going to obviously go against it. And obviously there's a big, rise online, on Twitter, Instagram, and things like that, where the fans are promoting the movie themselves, which I think is amazing because this movie needs every little bit of, marketing it can get because it's not looking too well at all. But yeah, this Blue Beetle, me and Ralph, we're gonna be there opening day. I already got the day off, or not the full day off. I was able to get out of work early, so we can go watch it as soon as we can. Um, but just from the trailer, we didn't react to the second one because just off the first comments that I read on the video, that it basically gave away so much. It was almost 4 minutes long. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm not gonna watch this trailer. But we did do a reaction to the first one. If you want to check that out, that's on the channel. But we're just excited because it's gonna be a Mexican American superhero. We're Mexican American. We love the actor Jolaman Joya. Obviously, he plays Miguel in Cobra Kai. George Lopez, he's my guy, one of my all-time favorite comedians. So for them to be in this movie, to be about a Mexican superhero, I absolutely love. But this right here, obviously, they're not gonna love this 12 to 17 million opening weekend range. Will it make more than 17 million? I hope it does. If I'm gonna throw a number out there, opening weekend, I think it will make 25. Um, I don't know. We'll see what happens. And what other stuff that I wanted to get into, the DC official site. DC official, that oh so right here, just some DC stuff I had pulled up, just the main site, nothing much I wanted to see there. And then right here, the last thing I wanted to end with some positive news. Jim Lee on returning to Comic-Con floor and the magic of James Gunn. So Jim Lee, obviously the head of DC, one of the heads of DC. He one of the greatest comic book artists of all time, an absolute living comic book legend. And yeah, he's back at Comic Con. Him and Todd McFarlane, they're doing a signing, I believe, tomorrow. It's going to be only a 1 hour signing, limited availability. So obviously, people are going to be camping out at night already today. They're probably already outside right now in San Diego to try to get those autographs. That's just to get them to signing on something. I think that would be amazing. But just what I wanted to get into is just some of the stuff like, without divulging figures, Lee says that certain titles have doubled or triple digit growth in sales since the duo took charge, which is James Gunn and Peter Safran. So right here, he goes on to say, it's amazing to have partners in Peter and James, particularly James. He was a comics fan growing up and knows our mythology inside out. And having that kind of ally in the live action space allows us to really leverage what is he doing and allow us to market and sell comic books to new readers. He goes on to say, these are people who are interested in his movies, his TV shows, and if they want to take deep dive into this characters he directs into the comic books, which ended up working for me. I got All-Star Superman. I bought the Supergirl comic. I bought the Green Lantern comics, the ones that were focused on in the announcement, and some other stuff. I'm forgetting what I bought, but I need to get the Swamp Thing. I need to get just a bunch of comics, the Authority graphic novel, just stuff that focuses on the DCU, and obviously it's growing. That's the good news for comics, because for years the comics weren't selling because of the live action stuff was coming out. People didn't really care about it. My God, my computer's about to die. But you know what? That's pretty much all I wanted to say. Just ended on some good news about Jim Lee is back at Comic Con, and he's there all the time, obviously. But some good news right there. So guys, continue to read your comics, continue to watch those DC movies, continue to support these creators, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Like I mentioned, I'm planning on doing this once a week, focus on DC news, good and bad news. But until next time, I am Chris. Peace.